Inside out and upside down and over and out and all the good stuff.
Have you always worn bow ties?
Always? No, only under coercion. That's all you do when I wear. You have to get the end, depending on the thickness of the tie. Either this one's a little longer if it's a thick one, or they're even if it's a thin one. And then you just tuck it in and tie it.
Winston Churchill once said, "To learn about history, read biographies. To learn about Central Florida history, read about the citrus pioneers." Welcome to History Means Business. I'm Rod Morton. Today we will spend the day with and explore the life of a Central Florida citrus pioneer. He is the largest grower of organic orange juice in the state of Florida. He's a philanthropist, an innovator, and an inductee into the Florida Citrus Hall of Fame and the Florida Agriculture Hall of Fame. It is my honor to welcome Mr. Bert Roper.
There you go. So if anyone asks you how to do a bow tie, that's how you tie a bow tie.
There you go.
Bert lives and works in Winter Garden, Florida, the birthplace of the citrus industry in Central Florida. In the frontier days, when everyone was rushing for gold, Winter Garden's gold was the color of bright orange. Citrus was it, and Bert's great-grandfather, William C. Roper, had that vision and decided to settle there in 1857.
First time, then he went back to Georgia, got the family, and he moved everybody down in '59.
Wow.
Permanently.
Wow.
He scouted the area and picked one of the garden spots of the world here in Winter Garden.
Well, he had to overcome a lot of obstacles, didn't he?
Alligators and mosquitoes.
Man.
They were the big obstacles.
In the early days, the family was involved in cattle and citrus, and then became seriously involved in it around the turn of the century. The terrible freezes of 1894 and 95 wiped out all but 3 of their citrus trees. It sent many other families packing, but the Ropers chose to stay. Bert Roper was born into the business on November 7, 1923, in Winter Garden, Florida. His father, whom everyone called Mr. Frank, started Roper Brothers with Bert's 2 uncles just a year earlier in 1922. After going broke along with everyone else during the Depression, they worked themselves back up in the citrus industry. Bert was an ambitious young man who wasn't afraid of hard work. He excelled in academics and developed a love of tinkering with mechanics. He spent many days working on his Model A and Model T cars. With his chemistry degree in hand from Emory University and the nation on the brink of war, Bert immediately joined the Navy, where he was assigned a tinkerer's dream job, aviation electronics. After the war, Bert came back to the family business for a while, but soon headed north, up to Yankee territory, to the University of Pittsburgh for graduate school, where he wrote his thesis on the degreening of oranges. But the best takeaway from Pittsburgh had nothing to do with citrus. He took out a girl by the name of Barbara Cruciger on a blind date. 2 years later, they were married. But the very first meeting was quite memorable, as Barbara explained.
Yeah, Bert was doing graduate work at the university, and we met on a blind date on a very warm night in June. 48, I think it was.
Wow, 1948.
Yeah.
So blind date, too.
Yes. Oh, and when he came to the door, and I opened it, or rather, I think my father opened the door, I thought the 2 of them were going to kill each other right away.
What happened?
Well, my father was a very strong Republican, and Bert comes out of the South as a very strong Democrat. And they said 2 words to each other and got into an argument about who knew what about politics and cooperatives and Roosevelt and Eleanor. And it was a very interesting exchange.
Well, Bert, who was right in that argument?
Well, 54 years later, I'm still guarded in answering anything relative to her father.
You're a wise man.
Well, what was fun about it, a couple of years later when Bert asked me to marry him, I told my father first before I told anybody else. And we used to play a game of cards in the evening, usually around 11 o'clock, and we'd listen to the symphony on the radio. And
We have a symphony behind us right now.
yeah, right. So I told Father that Bert had asked me to marry him, and Dad had his cards in his hand, and he kind of shifted them from one hand to the other, and he looked at me, and he leaned on the table for a moment, and then he put the cards down, and he said, "Barbara, they don't wash their frying pans in the South." And that was, I guess, his acceptance of Bert.
He hoped I took a bath.
Back in sunny Florida, Bert and Barbara started a family, and Bert began working for Winter Garden Citrus Products in the early days of orange juice concentrate production. He convinced them it was the coming trend and helped build the first concentrate plant here in Florida.
She was Cinderella from 1949 when she came on the scene.
And you started in the business in
49.
49.
Yeah,
yes.
we built Winter Garden Citrus in 49, opened it up March in 1950. My first real big job. I spent $500,000 in 90 days, and the big boss says, "Bert, you don't want to spend that kind of money. You don't have any idea what $500,000 is." I says, "No, I don't, Mr. Keene. I don't have any idea what it is, but I'll tell you in 90 days what it'll do." And we went through it and got started squeezing juice.
Man. After the plant was up and running, Bert went to work with his dad, Mr. Frank, and worked together for over 20 years.